You have no idea how much time I spent on that intro. Anyways, as a return to YouTube, I thought it would be fun to review the last couple episodes of my favorite TV show, BattleBots. I'm going to assume most of my longtime viewers haven't watched the newest BattleBots season, especially since this is very different content than what I usually do. I have talked about it once, but this is specifically aimed towards the BattleBots community, so I won't go in depth on what the show is about. Plus, like I've said before, I'm pretty sure most of you have seen random clips circulating on social media. But anyways, fun fact. Well, not really for me. I was going to review every episode of the season when it premiered, but the first parts file got corrupted, so I gave up. Every time I'd make a duplicate, it would just keep getting corrupted. So, now I'm just doing the tournament episodes, and for this video, the right side of the round of 32 for World Championship 7. All of the robots that made the tournament bracket impressed the selection committee enough to earn a spot for a chance to win the giant nut. Most of them. A lot of people are confused on why Shatter made the final bracket. They went 1-3 in the qualifiers, and one of their losses was against a 1-3 rookie robot that barely functioned. Keep in mind, they made it to the final 8 in 2020. I assume their pedigree elevated them. They are still a decent bot. And one of the better hammer bots, though they did lose to Beta, so I guess Beta's the best one. Speaking of Shatter, they're going against Riptide, a giant egg beater vertical spinner. Listen, anybody in the community knows the stigma around this bot. They made some tiny mistakes in sportsmanship against Mad Catter and Captain Shredderator, and a few people just don't really like the bot. Regardless, everybody agrees the robot is really good, just not the team, or their funding from Snake Oil Autism Cares. With a record of 10-2 so far in only 2 seasons, making the top 8 as a rookie, and going 4-0 in the qualifiers this year, this thing is scary. Listen to its death hum. Anyways, this is actually a rematch from last year's top 32. The first tournament fight aired for the 2021 season. Shatter was the 12th seed going against the 21st Riptide. Needless to say, Riptide dominated. This year, Riptide is the 2 seed going against the 31st seed Shatter. As much as people wanted Shatter to humiliate Riptide this episode, the odds were against them. Riptide and Shatter met head-on in the center of the arena, and Shatter lost one of its forks. In the first interaction too, not good. Shatter landed a small Hypershock on the top of Riptide, but it didn't stop Riptide from continuing to engage in attack. Riptide kept landing shot after shot with its spinner, and Shatter was sent flying through the air and across the box every time. The ablative armor did its job by being torn off, but Shatter's actual chassis was beginning to take some major damage. To Shatter's credit, they kept fighting on for about a minute, but eventually Riptide sent them spinning in one of the corners, pinning them with a pulverizer. That was a pretty sick combo, not gonna lie. Shatter couldn't move, though they kept swinging their hammer in an attempt to escape. It didn't work, they started smoking, and they got counted out. At least they lasted the longest so far this season against Riptide. Even Black Dragon, who had a 25 not KO'd streak, got the run ended in just 1 minute. So close to beating by force. As Chris has said, when that drum on Riptide starts a-hummin', it feels like something terrible is coming. I won't go into the drama that happened in the pre-fight, or post-fight. I'm too much of a wuss to get into that mess. Witch Doctor, themed after a witch doctor, is plagued with both the runner-up curse and 3-seed curse. 3 curses this season, but they seem to be unaffected by it. They're 3-1 so far, and only lost a judge's decision against Minotaur, who's the number 1 seed this year. They're one of the few bots who've competed in every season, and are among the most prominent teams. Jackpot is notable for being the hometown robot from Las Vegas, and for being one of the cheapest bots in the field. A lot of people called it Walmart Death Roll when it first debuted. Baby Jackpot can get lucky and fulfill the curse for Witch Doctor. This is a typical 4-wheel drive vertical spinner matchup. Witch Doctor is one of the best vertical spinners, and boss in general, in the entire field, but Jackpot does have an advantage in reach, given its discs are so big, approximately 22 inches. At first, Witch Doctor was cautious of Jackpot's larger discs, but when both robots made contact, Witch Doctor ended up winning. The second hit between the two mangled Jackpot's lifter, and the weapon slowed down to a halt a few seconds later. Down their spinner and half of their lifter, Jackpot was forced to ramming Witch Doctor until someone broke. Like Death Roll. Neither bot did, even after massive hits from Witch Doctor. Jackpot kept going, which Chris and Kenny pointed out how impressive that was for the bot on a budget. Jackpot continued hanging on until the last minute where Witch Doctor finally killed it. The frame was totally mangled, but they lasted longer than most people expected. It's honestly kinda surprising how Witch Doctor's dinky little disc just sends bots flying through the air so high up. On to Lucky vs Hypershock. It's the 15th seed Canadian flipper versus the 18th seed veteran vertical spinner. Both robots came in with fork setups, and both have really good drivers. Lucky's driver, Matt Olson, is, to my knowledge, a professional RC racer, and Will Bales won Best Driver in 2016. The winner would mostly be down to who had the low ground, and which driver can find the right angle. Hypershock does have the advantage of having a kinetic weapon that hits very hard, but they do have a problem with stability since they gyro around a lot because of their spinning discs. If Lucky's driving is good enough, they can capitalize if Hypershock flips itself over and control the match from there. Hypershock was a faster one out of the gate and popped Lucky up a few times. Lucky took minor damage to its flipper, but was still able to respond with a flip near the driver's booth. Hypershock was inverted and drove around trying to self-right, as Lucky gave chase. Using the shelf to right themselves, Hypershock recovered and continued to attack Lucky. At this point, Lucky's flipper was badly bent, but they were still able to self-right with it whenever Hypershock flipped them over. There's not much to go over, as Hypershock kept landing good hits on Lucky, just not the nuclear shots we've seen them land. Lucky was able to tank them well enough and continue fighting on without their flipper, and the match went on to the judges. One thing I noticed that by the end, Hypershock's back right drive chain got dislodged, but it didn't do anything as they are a 4-wheel drive robot. Of course, Hypershock won the judge's decision, but to be fair, Lucky has improved a lot. After their new driver debuted last season, they went from 4 to 10 to 10 to 15, made the tournament the past 2 years, and only lost judges' decisions against powerful vertical spinners in the round of 32. Hopefully we can see them again in Champions Season 2. Yet another rematch is Bloodsport vs Lockjaw. When they fought in 2020, Lockjaw used its anti-horizontal plow to stop Bloodsport's blade, then snapped the bar when Lockjaw turned around to use its spinner. Bloodsport changed its weapon material in part because of this. Bloodsport went in with its longest bar for more reach, interestingly ditching its wedgelets. Lockjaw's gigantic, juicy tires are a prime target for Bloodsport, and I honestly dread when Lockjaw fights a horizontal because its plow barely covers the backside. But Lockjaw usually has the advantage of experience. The team is one of the longtime veterans from the Comedy Central era. Lockjaw itself is half as old as I am. Fortunately for Lockjaw, Donald Hudson is really good at driving and staying squared up to his enemy. Unless it's a frog. Lockjaw went in leading with a plow, and it held up well till Bloodsport's long blade. Within the first few impacts, 15 seconds in, Bloodsport's weapon system caught fire, and the weapon slowed down. Lockjaw's plow has to have some mystic properties, I swear. Except against frogs. Bloodsport still could spin up, but its weapon was visibly slower. Lockjaw turned around to attack with its spinner. Like I was worried about, Bloodsport was able to clip Lockjaw's tires and slice off some rubber. The biggest hit was when Bloodsport sent both bots flying, ripping off the right front tire and weapon belt of Lockjaw. I personally would have kept leading with the plow, but thankfully Lockjaw decided to wisen up and reverse in with their armor again, and the last impact flipped Bloodsport over. In the slow-mo replay, they got popped up with a plow, and as Lockjaw got spun around, Bloodsport's blade clipped the top of Lockjaw's spinner mount, and they set themselves flying at this weird angle. Probably due to its weapon system being weakened from the fire, it didn't have enough torque to self-right. They were so close to winning, Lockjaw was down 2.5 tires, and their weapon mount was nearly split in two. Bloodsport got counted out, and I have never seen the team so upset. I get it though, you're so close to victory, and you lose it down to one small decision you make. Still, what a comeback by Lockjaw. Sucks they're facing Witch Doctor, who, let's face it, is probably going to decimate them. I'd hope to be surprised. If anyone wants to see a snake fight a cat, you're in luck. Claw Viper and Mad Catter are fighting each other. Two of the fastest bots, one is a grappler and the other is a vertical spinner and lifter. This is a rematch from last year's Golden Bolt tournament, but that fight was pretty forgettable. Claw Viper at the time was a pretty mid-tier control bot that was only notable for being fast. It's improved a lot, going 3-1, even beating Ribot, thanks in part due to much more aggressive driving than before. Mad Catter is a consistently good meta robot with a nice paint job and aggressive driving. They're not top tier, but definitely higher in the field. It's a community college team, and they made it into the tournament with a 2-2 record in the qualifiers. Claw Viper's speed is its main advantage in fights. Whether Mad Catter can keep its weapon pointed and win the low ground is the deciding factor here. Just like every match with Claw Viper, they box rushed Mad Catter, but Mad Catter started off facing sideways and avoided the rush. Gassy Cat didn't. Claw Viper tried to find an angle on Mad Catter, who was struggling to fight the gyroscopic forces. In my opinion, they had the most prominent weapon of all the non-drum spinners, and maybe Ribot too. It's just a regular bar spinner, but it's comparable to Riptide, Minotaur, and Copperhead. That thing spins incredibly fast, but it's also why turning is so hard. Judging from the lowering pitch of the weapon, I think the team tried to slow down the weapon to make turning easier. Claw Viper eventually found an angle and attempted to lift Mad Catter, splitting the BattleBot sign in the process. Mad Catter accidentally destroyed Gassy Cat, as Claw Viper pinned them against the rails, and soon flipped them over. Mad Catter self-righted, and as Claw Viper went in for another attack, their top claw got ripped off. Mad Catter finally landed a big shot near the upper deck that inverted Claw Viper. Without the top claw, they couldn't self-right, but were still able to drive around. Mad Catter's spinner went down, but they tried their best to push Claw Viper around until the buzzer rang. It ended up being a split decision in favor of Mad Catter, who probably won due to damage and Claw Viper being stuck on its head. Claw Viper attempted to appeal the decision, but it didn't work. Still though, they were able to show that a control bot can be a real threat. Good news! Next up, there isn't a 4-wheel drive vertical spinner in this matchup. Well, it's still 2 vertical spinners, but they're off meta. Huge versus Skorpios. Skorpios is one of the few robots who can attack Huge's main body, being a hammer saw, but Huge has had their best season so far. They were one of the few undefeated robots in the qualifiers, and their weapon has been the most destructive it's ever been. The team added extra armor on the front of Huge's body to protect against Skorpios' hammer saw. Usually, Huge loses when their opponent doesn't give them time to spin up and corrals them around. A quick, durable robot like Skorpios can pose a threat. Both robots came out quick and slammed into each other, the fastest I've seen Huge ever. Skorpios tried to jam up Huge's spinner, but Huge was able to find space to spin up. Skorpios was able to slice off Huge's balance bars, but as I got close, Huge was able to shred the right tire, leaving Skorpios crab walking. Not long after, Huge shredded Skorpios' top left panel, and Skorpios caught fire and stopped moving. That was quick. This is the best Huge has ever looked during a season, and this is the first time they made it past the first round of the tournament. A lot of people are hyping them up, because all of the advancing robots in their quadrant are 4-wheel drive metaverts, which Huge counters. Finally, they can't get screwed over by the matchup makers. The second to last fight of episode 16 is Copperhead vs Rotator. Both are very durable robots. Copperhead is a drum spinner, and Rotator is an undercutter with forks. Though sometimes they run the blade on the top, like they did here. I don't really know why, but anyways, Rotator went fork side first to try to get under Copperhead, but being a drum spinner, Copperhead just shredded them and grinded the underbelly of Rotator. It's interesting that drums are so effective against forks. Wedgelets and forks always get shredded up by drums, barring bite forces. After popping Rotator up in the air, Copperhead started having drive issues. That's a really common trend that happens. Rotator capitalized and ripped off a small chunk of Copperhead's tires, but they have solid rubber wheels, so it didn't do much. Copperhead was struggling to move, along with having to deal with gyroing as their weapon was humming at full speed. But it was still able to damage Rotator, even bending their own wheel guard into the spinner. Because of that, Rotator stopped spinning, and resorted to using their forks halfway through the match. Even with the drive issues, Copperhead kept their weapon pointed and ripped off small pieces of armor from Rotator, including the forks. Both bots made it to the end of the match, and Copperhead won unanimously. Considering Rotator has lost to the eventual champion every time in the tournament, I guess everybody should congratulate Copperhead on their season win. Too bad they lost to a pizza. Last up is probably the most hyped up fight in this episode. Former champion versus reigning champion. It's Endgame versus Tantrum. Love how one of the champions is going out in the first round and the third time fighting that had the same outcome the last 2 times. Both are orange 4-wheel drive vertical spinners with low forks. Endgame has much more forks, but Tantrum is quicker and more durable. Well, it used to be. Surprisingly, neither one of these winners are undefeated this season. Because of their super long forks, Endgame lost to a pizza, I said that already, and Tantrum has been struggling with reliability recently. They were one of the few 1-in-3 robots to make it in the tournament. This match would be down to forks. The first time they fought was in the Season 5 semifinals. Tantrum got under Endgame, but their weapon died, allowing Endgame to find the right angle and knock them out. The second and last time these two fought, which was in the Golden Bolt tournament in Season 6, the forks kept preventing contact for the first minute, until Endgame finally landed a shot, and that was pretty much what happened this time.
Let the bot battle begin!
Tantrum surprisingly got underneath Endgame's massive row of piano keys, shedding titanium sparks off of Endgame's forks. The reigning champion kept getting underneath Endgame and controlling them around the box. They didn't use a puncher after the interaction by the shelf, which cost them, because as they slammed Endgame into the rails a minute in, Endgame finally won the low ground and sent Tantrum flying through the air. You can see that this shot loosened up one of Tantrum's front armor plates. Every time these two fight, when Endgame lands their first shot, it leads to a chain of impacts that costs Tantrum their forks, and eventually the win. Endgame started to land bigger hits as Tantrum slammed into them. This is the first time Tantrum's front armor, the ones with the eyes, have ever been loosened up. Endgame soon ripped one off entirely. After just that one shot, Endgame found its groove and shredded Tantrum until the buzzer ended. Endgame won for the third time, and the reigning champion was eliminated by the former. Well, technically Endgame is the reigning Golden Bolt champion. Quite the disappointing season for Tantrum. But when they kept getting stomped in the qualifiers by Minotaur, their sister bot Blip, and then Whiplash, I just felt bad. Sure, they did beat Hydra, but they're the only reigning champion to lose in the qualifiers. And now they're eliminated by the same robot for the third time, who has proven that they are the superior champion. Endgame and Hydra may be my favorite bots, but seriously, Tantrum just can't catch a break. And they're apparently retiring after this season. Okay, well anyways, that's it for this review. I know that this is coming out a while after the episode aired, but animating is incredibly time consuming compared to just doing a normal commentary. Regardless, I'll try to work as fast as I can, and hopefully be done reviewing the tournament sometime in July. I'll probably do Champions when it comes out,